Might not
Is it
have done
coming
it.
in?
Now it is.
You
see
got
that?
that right.
You see that, Brian? We need great value everything. Hello.
Hello.
Brian's in here, but there's no thumbs up.
Weird. It's very weird.
Oh, we dropped a person.
Uh-oh.
we
We're
lost
down
somebody.
to 0. They're like, uh-oh.
Oh,
Came into
there's a
this?
thumbs up. I shamed Brian into pressing the thumbs up, I think.
Oh, weird. No.
The lighting is,
I forgot
is not great.
I don't like this. I don't like this.
You don't like what?
You need to sew another curtain.
What?
Hello, Omega
Oh,
Royal.
that. You mean behind you. Hello.
I-
You mean the light behind you?
Yes.
Yeah.
My son.
Way over there.
Tim.
Uh-oh, Timmy's texting.
No,
Oh.
Timmy's not texting.
Oh, I thought he was texting. You're holding your phone. I just assumed when you said Tim, he was texting.
We are.
She's telling
live.
Timmy that we're live, even though we're live at the same time every week. Just need to
He
get my
asked
snacks.
me to remind him, so instead of setting a reminder, I'm his reminder.
I wonder if I can- Oh, that's a little better.
That didn't help over here.
Well, no, I can't do anything about that.
Ugh, we are so sweaty today. Oh my!
All right, speak for yourself.
I am so sweaty
I'm okay.
today. I'll be watching. He likes to make fun of me later.
Okay.
He'll send me Snapchats of myself, and he'll like zoom in on my face and
We're a couple minutes early. We just got on because Brian was whining.
Get my snacks. I'm not allowed to have snacks at night. Brian doesn't allow me to eat after. I'm not allowed. I'm like a.
Ruffles. We can't afford Ruffles.
What is it? What are those little things you can't get them wet after a certain?
You're like
not
a
supposed to
gremlin.
be- I'm like a
gremlin.
gremlin. I'm not allowed to eat after 5 o'clock. No, 4 o'clock. I eat at 4 o'clock. Otherwise, I swell up like a bullfrog.
Wait, it's a gremlin before it eats after midnight, right? What is it after it eats after midnight? That's what you are.
You want some?
No, don't spray me.
Please let me.
Don't spray me. Gremlin.
Look, it
Omega
sounds good.
Rose said gremlin. That's great.
Gremlin, yes.
Congratulations.
Gizmo.
What is
Billy, where's Billy?
Don't they have a different name after they get messed up?
Stripe.
Well, that was his particular name, but isn't there a name for the animal once it becomes?
Gizmo.
Does it become something else? Or was it? Wait, maybe it's the other way
Mogwai.
around. It's a
Mogwai.
mogwai before it does that, and it's a gremlin after. Am I right about that? Does anybody know?
That's correct.
I think. Hey, I know you did that on purpose. You did that on purpose. You pretended like you were spraying your arm just so you could spray me.
Yes, I'm sorry. Not
So,
sorry.
Somebody.
Okay, I'm out of
That's
control.
80s movie, right?
Yeah.
80s movie trivia.
Yeah.
It's a mogwai beforehand, right? And then a gremlin after it eats
Mogwai.
and drinks after midnight and all that. Gets
Yeah.
it wet, all that business.
That's correct.
So what's his name wasn't a gremlin then?
Gizmo.
Gizmo
was not.
wasn't a gremlin. Pam, I will pay you $1 if you draw a mustache on Brian's
$1.
famous for I'll give you a quarter for
Oh,
whatever, or I'll give you $1 for whatever.
Melissa and Taylor.
Hey, Melissa and Taylor.
Yeah, Brian likes to pay people to drink all the alcohol.
Not me, Brian. B. Avondale.
Hey, Moses.
Hey, Moses.
Hey, Moses.
Welcome. I guess we can get started at 6 o'clock, and there were 11 people in here. Now we're down to 9, but.
Dang, it's like they popped their head in and said,
Hey, Alan.
this isn't for me.
Yeah.
Hi, Alan.
So.
Every time I say hi, Alan, I'm sorry.
What time?
You know what movie that makes me think of?
Alan.
Alan!
I don't, actually.
Is it 5 yet? He's going to make me shut up at 5.
It is way past 5 because we start at 6. So you've done that before, actually. It is 6.
Oh, okay.
Which I actually just said.
You don't know what movie I'm talking about?
No, you're very bad.
Where somebody's running down the street
really
screaming, Alan!
Nothing. I got nothing.
It's the other guys.
Oh, all right.
Hi, Paul.
Hey, Paul.
In
Projects
Georgia?
with Paul. Another one who's
on that.
3 hours ahead of us. Thanks for joining us late. or not late, but later time. So all right, let's talk. So what happened? So what happened last night?
Geez. Oh,
Unrelated to the build. What happened last night?
Oh gosh, I don't even know what happened an hour ago. Wait a minute, let me think.
How's the Bucks going?
We're
working on it. We'll get to it. How much time? We don't have time for that discussion. We'll talk about it shortly.
No, I'm talking about how much time do we have for me to try to think back to
what happened last night. Are you serious?
We watched.
You can't be serious.
We watched Trailer Park Boys.
You can't be serious.
Brian freaked out. You freaked out.
We lost our water again last night.
Oh, geez.
How quickly we forget. I guess it's easy to forget when you just get to go to sleep and I take care of it. And when you wake up in the morning, it's magically back. That must be nice.
Brian went for a little jog.
I can see how you could forget it that way.
What time was it? Was it around?
It was midnight.
He went for a little jog down the street.
So Pam informed me, as she does.
Well, hey, you're lucky that I had to get up and go to the bathroom.
She informed me that we had no water about midnight. And that we had water about an hour before that at 11, because she goes to the bathroom every hour.
Not quite that often, but
lucky for our she goes to the bathroom every hour. So, so at midnight we knew we didn't have water, which meant I had to put on my shoes, take a flashlight.
Your mom. Hi, Mom. Did your mom hear this yet?
And jog down to the wash and see it gushing. And jog past the wash to the well house and shut off our water. So I had to shut off our water last night.
And he didn't film it.
It was dark.
Time to film it. Oh, it was dark.
I guess I did take my phone just in case something
what about
bad
a
happened.
Flashlight? You didn't have a
but
flashlight?
I had a flashlight, actually. You didn't film it either. She was asleep, probably. So I jogged down there, shut that off, jogged back up, got back into bed, and surprise, couldn't sleep after jogging half a mile. So I was awake for a while, and I got to obsess about the build for hours while I was in bed, not sleeping.
Oh my! You shouldn't obsess.
So that happened last night, and so I shut it off. So that's fine, and we're a little more prepared for this now. We've got bottles of water all the time, so that we can at least use toilets or whatever.
So I can flush.
But I got up at think right about 5 a.m.
It needs to be buried.
Yeah, it happened again. It becomes that thing of, is it worth doing something when it's not going to be that long?
No, just bury it right there where it breaks apart.
That's easy to say, but the hose is only so long, so you can't just. If I dug a trench under it right now today, it would just suspend above that trench. It's not. There's not enough slack for it even to drop. Hey, Yvonne and Bill.
Hello.
So yeah, we lost water again last night. So 5 o'clock this morning, I got up. I did have a bowl of cereal because I was hungry, but then I went back down. I took my little toolbox and went down of tools that I know I need to fix this problem, because I fixed it about 32 times now. And I went down there and I fixed it. Now I did this time. It keeps breaking at, I don't know if, I'm pretty sure I've shown this in a video, but I've introduced kind of a little spigot, a little T and a spigot. And I did it mostly for the winter so that we could drain that line at times so that it wouldn't freeze and swell and crack. That spigot is still on there, and that's where it kind of keeps busting off either side of that spigot. We've had it break off of both sides of that T. It just pops off. It's just the pressure and time. And I think what happens is the expansion and contraction from the temperature, again, because it's not buried, is enough to loosen those clamps enough that it'll just pop off of there. So,
what is PEX?
PEX is what we're going to use in our house, actually, but
is that the skinnier stuff?
Well, PEX tends to be smaller when you use it in your house, but I'm sure it has different sizes and things. But anyway, I don't think I'm going to run PEX 1,000 feet or however far, 1,200 feet or whatever.
Can't you splice it somehow?
Well, there's lots of things you can do. The question is, what does it make sense to do if I hope to be on water catchment tanks in a month? So that's the position we're in. Yeah, there are solutions, but we went through them a while back and decided that they weren't worth it.
Right.
In that we were switching over to water catchment. So I didn't realize that we would be just kind of popping off every once in every couple of weeks or whatever. So I didn't realize it would be that bad, but it happened last night. So I didn't note the last time it happened. I don't think I marked that on a calendar or anything. It'd be kind of nice to know how long we lasted before it popped off.
We need to start.
Anyway, with this fix, I actually removed. Shark bites may work better than clamps. I'm not sure what options I have for 1.25 inch ranch pipe. I'm not sure what all the options are. I'm only familiar with kind of the one method of connecting it. Somebody else had suggested glue.
What is
Again, I don't know
Shark
if shark bite is a special kind of fitting that you push in and it won't pull out. I guess it's got kind of teeth pointing a certain way or something. Anyway, the point isn't how we could solve this problem, because there are ways to solve this problem. The question is, which of those ways are actually worth it for some finite short amount of time that it would be there, and how much does it cost, and how much time does it take, and all these things. Now, I realize I keep dealing with this broken pipe, and it'd be nice not to deal with that. But as I said, I didn't realize it was going to pop apart several times. So,
and
yeah,
he's trying to
hindsight.
do
But
other things.
and yeah, it's not something I'm thinking about very often. So anyway, it happened. I removed the when I made this fix, I removed the
because it gets cold.
we think we know why it happens at night. I think it's from expansion and contraction of the pipes and the fittings, which are both plastic. And overnight, when we've been really hot recently, but it still gets cool at night. It was actually pretty cold this morning, actually, when I ran down there to fix it. And that change in temperature, and because the thing isn't buried underground,
Tim says we're
I'll get to
cutting
it, Bill.
in and out a lot.
Oh, really?
Can y'all hear us?
Does anybody have an audio trouble? Actually, I should have mentioned. Somebody mentioned last week or something. Somebody said there was bad audio. So let me know if there's bad audio. I hope it's not because we have like fans going and things. But anyway, let me try and take the question. So to my mom, it happens at night. Oh, Mom said it's all right. We think it happens at night because of the temperature change. And again, because it's not buried, because it's just exposed, those plastics expand and contract at different rates. And it's enough to loosen those clamps enough that the pressure of the water being in there all the time will just pop it. We think that's why it happens at night. It doesn't seem to happen during the day.
We don't have we can't use it yet because we don't have a water
So
pump,
Bill
right?
asked about why we're not using the cisterns. We actually do have one full cistern. We've been filling it from our well water. We do have one full cistern, but we have no pumping system set up yet to handle that. Now, I guess we could try and maybe fill the holding tank in the RV and try and use that, but that means cleaning out the holding tank because we haven't used it in years. So again, there are solutions, yes. Which of them makes sense is a whole nother question. It's like, do you just kind of live with something until you get to the next
How come
thing?
you can't just like wrap it with something?
So you're getting ahead of me. So
sorry.
are you talking about what Moses said, which I haven't even read yet?
No,
So
I'm getting ahead.
Oh, okay. Baling wire across the unions is how we fix fittings that come apart. Just twist and run and twist it on the other side. Baling wire. That's a very good suggestion, Moses. Thank you. Now that is something that's quick, easy, cheap.
Where do you get that wire?
And
do we have some wire?
we might have some actually, or you could go to Ace or Tractor Supply. That's a good idea. Alan says it sounds fun. Brian says, I wish I had bad audio during this story.
Funny. Brian.
Can you wrap it with something to help keep it insulated? Maybe. I don't know what that would be that the wind wouldn't take away. I was thinking maybe a towel, and you'd have to tie it on maybe. But I kind of like Moses' suggestion.
Yeah. Did you notice Off-Grid Patriot? Do you remember
Oh,
him?
yeah.
He changed his name from High Desert Off-Grid, I think it was.
Yeah.
It was one of those high desert names.
Yeah, we've met. Not that there's anything wrong with the high desert name, but a lot of people are using high desert in their names, and we mentioned that it was kind of hard to sometimes keep them all straight. So I think Off-Grid Patriot recently changed his channel name.
Oh, it's Jim.
Hey, Jim and Jessica, welcome.
And Jessica.
So we haven't gotten into the build yet. Just a little side note that last night we lost our water. We got it back, but it's just a constant headache until we switch over to the water tanks. But we do have one full water tank, but I've got to set up a pumping system, but I'm kind of concentrating on the house right now, so I'll have to get back to it.
It's hard to do all these little, there's so many things that need to be done. And
so,
we're not filming every single
back to the build. So we've got kind of two things to talk about. Let's talk about trusses first. I know Moses asked about the bucks, and we'll get to that. But let's talk about the trusses, because that's the thing we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks. So we did finally get some let's say more finite answers, right? We got some. So last Friday, as we said, we did go to the two companies that were in Tucson and talk to them in person. So the story as of last week was we had a quote from Sierra Vista, which was a nice quote, but the number won't hold, and the lead time was 12 weeks. So kind of a bummer. Both of those kind of stink. So we had gotten a quote from one of the Tucson companies. It was a pretty high quote, and there wasn't a lot of understanding. I didn't know if we were on the same page. So there was that. And we hadn't heard from the third company, which was in Tucson. So on Friday, we were in Tucson and we went to those two companies in person. The first one was the company that had already given us a quote, but they hadn't given us a lot of information. So I wanted to make sure we were on the same page. It kind of went, unfortunately, how I sort of expected it to. There was a little bit of a communication barrier. And I went to this guy's desk, the guy who produced the quote. I was at his cubicle, and I kind of described something. He hadn't given me any special, the trusses on the ends weren't special to handle kind of outlooks or lookouts or, yeah.
I can't remember his
Grim
name.
Reaper, 6942.
Joe Lynn.
And Rob.
And Rob.
Welcome, Rob and Joe Lynn.
Hello.
So anyway, the conversation went kind of like I expected. There's a bunch of cob going up today. Wondering where at MidlifePrices. So.
Oh, so the second guy, or the quote that you got from the one place where the communication barrier was.
Yeah.
There were like two different guys, and
we weren't really on the same page. And when I tried to talk to him, we weren't communicating very well. Like I said, he hadn't given me anything special on the ends to handle the kind of the overhang on the sides to get an extra sort of overhang on the sides. And when he finally did understand that that's what I was asking for, he said he could give me another quote, but it would go up. He actually has given me another quote, and it went up. So, I mean, their quote is pushing, it's well over $7,000 or something like that. So, whereas the first one from Sierra Vista was like $4,400 or something like that.
That's
but they won't hold it for 12 weeks. So, I don't know what good that means. So that first one in Tucson went kind of like I expected, and I kind of kicked them out of the mix, really. Then we went to the second company in Tucson, which I was hopeful about, because again, they were talking about a shorter timeline, which was nice. And I talked to the lady a couple times before I sent her the information, and she didn't seem to have too much of a problem with what I was saying, but she said she couldn't answer anything really until she saw my plans. So we did go see them, and right when we walked in, they had just finished up our quote. 2 people had worked on it, and that was a quick 5-10 minute conversation. They kind of laid everything out the way we expected. We were both on the same page. I said, did my stuff make sense? They said yes. They said, here's what we did. They had given us kind of 2 special trusses on the ends so that we could hang stuff out over the edges. It was all good, except the quote was about, I think it was $6,500. So, and their next delivery was 6, which is about what they were saying. I was hoping they could be more like 4 weeks, but it was about 6 weeks out. So again, I had already, even before these 2 meetings, because I just wasn't real confident or real optimistic about how they were going to go, I had been in my head thinking about alternatives. And I need to give somebody credit. David Edward Tolson, who's often on here. I haven't seen him yet tonight, but
he's not on his lunch break.
I think he had missed last week's live, but why don't you just build them? Says Moses.
I think he is going to. Not here.
Anyway. So Jim says that's nothing. So David had seen last week's live, I think after the fact. I don't think he was on it. And he asked a question, which, if you remember a couple of weeks back when we first started talking about trusses, we kind of almost changed course and went to more of a post and beam type of build. And a friend of mine, Craig, rightfully so, I think, kind of talked me down off of that, because it would have changed a lot of things about our build, right? It wasn't just one aspect. It was going to change a ton of things. And I think it was probably a bad idea to go that far. But unfortunately, once I kind of set that aside and said, no, I'm not going to change course that much, I kind of lost that idea. And David kind of brought it back and saying, he just commented on the live after the fact and said, how hard would it be to put some posts inside the house so that you could run a beam where some rafters could meet? And I said, I started to kind of type up a response and say, well, we talked about that and we decided we didn't want to do it. And then I realized that when we talked about that, and maybe it was me that ran down that road too far. And I think it's because I was equating it to the carport here. I kind of went to this whole let's change everything basically, and I was putting posts around the outside and posts on the inside and all this stuff, and it became this more post and beam infill, straw bale infill, which wasn't really load bearing anymore. And that changes a lot of things that we haven't really learned as much about and everything. Not that we couldn't do it, but
Jim said it's hot.
But it was very different. Sure.
Sure.
So
it is hot. That's why
I started to think again about what David said and said, well, what if I didn't take this drastic change and just talked about the one, down the middle? So that's what Bill had told me to do at one point. But I said, what if we kept kind of the majority of what we're talking about, which is really load-bearing straw bale in terms of the walls, but just added this one little change of a beam across the center so that we could set rafters on it. And I started to think about that more and more, and I think that's where I'm leaning now for a couple of reasons. And I've talked about these reasons before. You know, one, it puts more of this in my control. You know, I can buy the material when I'm ready. I can put it up when I'm ready. I've done that kind of a roof build already with the carport. It's working with rafters as opposed to trusses, which, you know, trusses aren't super complex, but I mean, there's things about trusses that I've never put up. Well, take that back. I put up a couple of bills with them, but still, you know, I could make a mistake or something. Maybe I feel a little more comfortable.
They ended up using 2x6 now.
That's a little small, but the point is you can save some money by going that route.
Oh,
sure.
Yeah.
That's
I'm
the other.
all for
So
that.
one is, and I talked about this before, I'm a little more comfortable with something like that. It puts a little more in my control. Number two is money. I mean, sure, lumber is still expensive, and I will pay a lot more for this lumber than I would have a year or more ago, but it would come in way less than trusses.
Like
so I priced it out.
$3,000.
Yeah, I priced it out, and it looks like it would be in the neighborhood to get these big. And I was pricing, I think, 2x10s, which is probably a little overkill. I could probably back off to 2x8s. I talked to Moses about that a little bit. But even so, I priced it at 2x10s, and it was basically just, you know, two boards for every rafter, and rafters at every 2 feet, and even then adding a couple of posts and a couple of beams to get across the house. I ballparked it, and I think I was being a little conservative even with some fasteners and things like that, and I had it at about $2,500. So even from our cheapest quote, which we know wouldn't hold the number anyway, that's about a $2,000 savings. And from the quote in Tucson that I probably would have been most likely to go with in terms of a combination of price and comfortability and location and timing, it's a $4,000 savings over that one. So, I mean, that's not just a couple of bucks. That's
Right.
a lot of money, right? That's a bunch of windows. That's a bunch of appliances or whatever, right? So that's a lot of things.
That's the whole
So,
kitchen.
so Bill's saying 2x8s. Yeah, I only really need to span from the edge of the house to the center of the house just over 12 feet, like 12 and a half.
Did that
So
2,500.
yeah, that I actually with just, and again, this was 2x10s, and 2x8s are like $10 less a piece, and I would have 40 of these pieces of wood, basically 2 per rafter and about 20 rafters. That's including the rafters hanging out over the edge. So I priced 16-foot 2x10s and 2x8s. 2x10s, even just the 2x10s themselves came out to like $1,700 or something like that. And then, of course, you'd need a couple of posts, a couple of beams, and some fasteners and things like that. So I basically just bumped that number up and said, let's say it took $2,500. That's a big savings. And if we backed off to 2x8s, even more. So that's the rafter conversation at the moment. So I'm backing away from, I'm sorry, the truss/rafter conversation. I'm sort of backing off of trusses. I don't know, I don't know if truss companies are sort of taking advantage of the situation and whether they're inflating their prices.
Sure
I don't
they
know
are.
if the lumber really is that bad. I find it interesting that I asked 3 companies to build the same thing and the prices are all over the map. So I also have this little bit of a feeling that they're almost sort of trying to take advantage of the situation, which makes me want to kind of go on my own.
2x8s are more
anyway,
than enough.
so a bunch of people are saying 2x8s. I'm glad to hear that.
Out
I could do it even
over
cheaper.
the edge.
So, yeah. So Moses
2x8s
Moses
where
brought up
that
the fact that
span is plenty.
if I overlap them in the middle a little bit, and if I let them overhang, which I definitely am going to let them overhang the edge, you get a little bit of a cantilever effect, and that actually makes it, a little more, helps that spanning. So I tend to think you guys are all right about the 2x8s. When I was just doing kind of I felt more like 2x10s, but I'd be willing to back off
Bill
to
told
2x8s.
you to do this a long time
He
ago.
told me, I thought he had said if he had to do over again, but maybe he was just saying for me and my situation. He told me a while back, he said, you should probably just do post and beam and have the straw be infill and not support. So I'm still kind of thinking load-bearing straw bale, but I'd like to add the beam to make the roofing structure a little easier for me, a little cheaper for me. So anyway, that's the truss conversation. And some of you have already kind of, and again, we did talk about this before, but I think I took it too far to go to more of a post and beam on the whole building, which I don't think I really want to do, because everything I've learned up to this point is really about load bearing and the compression of the bales and all that stuff. So I don't know that I want to change course that drastically, but I don't mind maybe just adding the beam in the center. So that's where we are on trusses and rafters. Does that all make sense? Do you have anything to add? Do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
So
I've already heard it.
I gotta say, I was actually starting to lean that direction even before we went and talked to these companies, because I wasn't optimistic and I was trying to come up with an alternative in my head. The second company in Tucson, like I say, I was 16-inch on center. I was going to go 2 feet on center. So to those like Bill and Moses and Alan, do you think 2x8s are enough even if I'm at 2 feet rather than 16 inches? That is an ice pack. Welcome, Sean. Again.
Hello, Sean.
Thanks for joining, Sean.
That's my ice pack.
That is an ice pack. It's warm in here, by the way. What were we, 100 today?
It's not too bad with that fan blowing.
It's okay, but it's warm. It's getting warm.
Drying out my eyeballs.
Oh, see, Moses says no problem. So I'll look into that a little more, and I think maybe I am willing to back off to 2x8s, which would save me even more money, which makes it even better, right? Okay, so that's the roofing conversation. That's great. That's actually still a couple steps in the future. You're only spanning 12 feet. So next is window bucks. I really should sort of apologize to the whole channel, but I'll apologize to you guys that are here tonight. I was this close to putting out a video yesterday, and it was going to be a walkthrough of my SketchUp drawing. So if you guys remember a while back, quite a while now.
It's really cool.
We did it. Yeah, it's nice. And I still will do the video.
It's exciting because I can see it.
I learned something while I was making this video and while I was making this drawing. So here's where we are. A while back, some of you may have been here. We did a live fairly early on in the lives where I brought up a SketchUp drawing real time and I kind of walked through it. Now I've never done that as a video on the channel, so I feel bad that I haven't shared that with everybody else. I haven't really shared our house plans other than on the live. So I said, I really should share that, especially since recently, that drawing was actually kind of the indoor space, kind of how we thought we would lay the rooms out and things. It wasn't really the structure of the house. It was the interior space, how we were going to lay it out. And that's still pretty accurate, actually. But in doing all this truss work with the truss companies to be able to give them the information they needed, I've been drawing more of the outside structure, the bales, the bucking, the top plate, the sill plate, the box beam, all that stuff, right? And rafters and stuff like that, or trusses. So I had those 2 drawings, and I realized I hadn't really shown them to anybody other than a couple of friends that I walked through this stuff. Thanks, Moses. Thanks for stopping in. I know Moses doesn't get a lot of chances to stop in with his internet, so I appreciate it. Thanks. Anyway, I hadn't shared any of this stuff, and it was starting to look pretty cool. So I took the 2 drawings and I put them together, and I made sure that, number one, for a while, both those drawings were sort of conceptual, right? Because we didn't have anything really outside. Well, now that we've got the sill plate actually physically there, I have real measurements, right? So we've been shooting for a 30-foot wide by 24-foot deep structure. Well, because of the way I laid out the tires and everything, and when I put the sill plate onto the tires and centered it, we actually grew by about a foot in each of those directions. I might have mentioned that before, but so I actually drew that up to exact size, right? I drew the sill plate exactly as it looks. I even put the little cross members exactly where they are.
I have to spray myself.
So okay. So I put those 2 drawings together, and I had to modify slightly the rooms because they were drawn to fit in a 24 by 30, and now it's a 31 by 25, right? So I pushed them out to the corners a little bit, and we started to see. And obviously, one of the things I wanted to accomplish with this drawing was to figure out the windows, the window layout and door layout. Now I had a vague idea, but I hadn't drawn them. So I started to draw them in, but I wanted to have the rooms in place, actually. So I put these 2 drawings together, and I started to draw the windows. Are those outside dimensions? Those are interior, Bill. Those are interior dimensions.
The whole thing is 700 and how much?
It's about 775 now.
Yeah,
I said, we were going for the 24 by 30, which I think was in the neighborhood of 750, and we're now at about 775. A little bigger than we were shooting for, but still, I think, reasonable. So I put those 2 drawings together. Great. And I wanted to make that video and share it with everybody on the channel, not just in the live. So I started to make that video, right? So I did the SketchUp and I did a screen recording and I was talking through each of the steps and everything. And while I was doing it, you know, I started off just drawing a couple of bales just to show kind of what the bales would look like. But then once I was done with it, I thought, well, maybe I'll clean this up and make it, even do a little more finish, right? So I put a little finishing touches on the drawing and I drew all the bales basically between the bucks, between the window and door bucks and everything. So I put all the bales in. I even cut the ones right down to the sizes they would need to be and everything. So, and then I walked through and I did my whole conversation. And it wasn't until I got all the way through that video and I was kind of watching it and sort of putting it together and editing slightly. And I looked at the window and door bucks, and, you know, a bale comes up to one side of it and a bale comes up to the other side of it. And these window and door bucks, at the moment, the way I had drawn them, were kind of just sort of normal framing, let's say. If you think of a normally framed wall out of 2x4s or even 2x6s, it was framed with 2x4s, you know, with king studs, jack studs,
Cripple.
a sill, a header, and cripple studs above and below, right? If you've ever seen a framed wall, that's pretty standard
That's
stuff.
all I know is cripples.
And I put that structure kind of on the outer edge of the sill plate. And at first I thought, no big deal, right? That I leave an opening for the window. I leave the rough opening for the window. The window goes in there. The window's on the outside of the building. And on the inside, I just have a little cutout, essentially, a niche into that window. No big deal, right? Until I saw the bales coming up to the sides. And then I looked below the window. There were no bales. I thought, well, I can kind of drop one there, but there's a weirdness about how they fit with those cripple studs being there. And, you know, it doesn't really fit flush. But even that wasn't so bad. But then I looked above the window and I thought, I can't just suspend a bale or any other type of insulation in midair or whatever. So,
hi, Tom.
Hi, Tom. So I realized that I had a flaw here. I hadn't, and I know Bill did some things a little differently. As far as the bottom of the window is concerned, he built up the bales and just set his kind of box, his window box, on the bale. That takes care of the bottom part of that at least, right? But I wasn't doing that. I was framing from floor to ceiling. So I had this issue at the bottom of how to fit a bale or any other kind of thing in there. And definitely an issue at the top because I didn't have any sort of anything for the bale to rest on or any kind of insulation to rest on.
On the top, you got to build what are called
baskets
out
of chicken wire or hardware mesh. That's an interesting.
Fill it with straw. Because we were watched Yvonne putting straw, and I was showing him that.
But I didn't realize there were baskets there. So anyway, I actually went to our teachers, right? I went to Bill and Athena Steen, who Bill knows a lot of people on here might know or be aware of. And I said, hey, did I miss something in our little class? Because I could have swore in the class we took. Now, we did some of the things kind of hands-on when we built in the class, and then some of the things you just kind of talk through the details. And it's easy to kind of miss or not fully understand if you just talk through some of the things. So we had built straw bale walls as a kind of a test on their property, and we had put up a window buck or a couple of window bucks on their property. And I don't remember. I do remember that their window bucks were either just 2x4s or 2x6s placed on the outer edge of the sill plate, which is why I never thought much about this. But then I don't think we finished the baling that would happen after above and below the window.
No, we did put this. They didn't even put a thing on the top, did they?
I don't think they did. And we probably just talked about what you would do, and then maybe didn't physically do it. And it's been a little while since we've been in that class, and maybe it didn't jive with me at the time. I just missed it or something. So I sent an email off to Bill and Athena, and I said, "What am I missing here? Does the buck need to be?" I don't remember the bucks being as deep as the bales, but it seems like they have to be for this to work. And so this is actually today. I've gone back and forth with him a couple of times, and he's been very responsive and very helpful. And he said that is one method. You can build a buck that really is a buck that is basically as deep as the bales. So that's one of the things I'm playing with right now. But then there's also with Bill. Do you have a book about straw bale building? Yes. I have at least one.
Yes, we
do.
But
I don't know that we have many that talk about. Most of the ones talk about non-load bearing, unfortunately. So there are some differences, of course, when I talk about those things.
Floor to ceiling window and door butts make the wall settle for different.
That was another,
different from
the idea. That was another issue with maybe just having a buck on kind of the outer edge of the sill plate, which would mean it would connect. It would hit the box beam only on the outer edge. And the question was, will there be some sort of weird kind of loading on top of that? Well, now the idea is, even though those bucks are there to provide a little extra support, the support really is provided by the bales, and that's why you pre-compress them, and you do a test to see how much they compress so that you know kind of where they should compress to so that you can cut off your bucks to that level. The idea is that when you squeeze down that box beam and it squeezes the bales, it lands right on top of the bucks so that there shouldn't be any uneven loading there, at least in theory, right? So he's making will a floor to ceiling window and door box
I'm
make
getting
the wall settle
sleepy,
different?
so
I'm sorry. I can't talk about the build anymore.
I brought a squirt bottle to squirt myself
Anyway.
in the face when I start.
Those are some of the things that I've been dealing with. Is
Or
again,
hot.
it's just, this is something, I don't know if everybody else has this problem, but again, I kind of just glossed over that detail in my mind, and it wasn't until I saw that drawing with all the bales in place that I went, how do I put a bale up high and how do I put a bale down low? And so,
But you did figure it out.
so right? I think we have figured it out. Like I said, Bill, there's more than one way to do this.
Yes.
So what Bill suggested is an option, and what Bill Steen suggested was to maybe build a deep buck, essentially. He also brought up another point which I hadn't thought about much, and this is in a lot of the books, right? They talk about the outer sill on a window, right? They generally don't put straw bale wall windows right up against the outer edge like you would on a normal building, right? Like that window is right at the outer edge. And I think it has to do with water and things happening at the corner with the plaster, and the water can find its way in and stuff. So a lot of times they'll set that window back in from the outer edge of the wall and build a sill that is sloped toward the outside and actually extends beyond the actual plaster wall so that water can kind of come off and not run down the wall, but drip down so that it's actually not coming down the wall. Because I think that's one of the places where you get a lot of your wear and tear on your walls is the plaster at the corners of the windows, the bottom corners of the windows. So it took me a minute to realize when I was going back and forth with Bill Steen today, this was all in email. And I think what he was telling me to do was kind of pull the window back in to the wall a little bit. He basically told me I could build I could set the window as deep into the wall as I wanted. But he said that outer sill should be covered with something that maybe isn't plaster, because I think he was thinking it would be sort of a flat surface that rain would hit. So you don't really want that to be plaster on bales, earth plaster on bales, because it's going to be getting hit with rain a lot. So he started talking about putting metal here and everything. And it took us a while to get on the same page for me to understand what he was talking about. So anyway, that's just some of the things that have been going around in my head just in the last day or two having to do with window bucks, because I really need to get out and build those window bucks. So Alan says, I know in log homes, the window box sets on the lower logs and there's room for settling above. Oh, okay. Yeah, which, like I said, Bill set his window bucks on bales. So if you insert the windows, make sure you don't buy windows with a nailing flange for traditional wood framing. Sure, that makes sense. Yeah, because normally, so I've only installed 3 windows in my life, and they were out in that shed there, and that was on a traditionally framed wall. So they did have the nailing flange around because you put them up and you just nail them in. That's a good point, Bill. You need a different type of connection, really, if you're going to set the window back in. So I actually still haven't decided whether I'm going to pull that window back in or not, but it took me a minute to realize that Bill Steen was kind of telling me, he was describing a situation where that window would be set back from the face of the wall.
You can
outer
go
face.
ahead and build them. You can go ahead and build them though without.
Yeah, I think so. So I'm actually leaning towards building that kind of deep window buck that's basically as wide as the sill plate and the box beam, for a couple of reasons. One, I think it might just be sort of the easiest. Number two, it would give even support to the box beam that's above it. I don't know that that's 100% necessary, because like I said, the bales should be providing support as well. But if there is any give there, kind of with having just a buck on the outer edge, I'd feel better having that buck kind of span the whole width of the box beam and the sill plate down below. I think that's just a little more stable. So maybe that's just a gut feeling thing. I don't know if that's real or not, but I'm kind of leaning that way right now. So basically my bucks will be deep bucks, if that makes sense. Which I know Bill's were as well, especially his doors. He went kind of, I think, the full width of his sill plate. I think on the windows, he didn't go maybe full width, but he did use a pretty big piece of lumber, I think, maybe a 2x10 for those window bucks. I know they were fairly deep. So anyway, that's just some of the stuff that's been rattling through my head. And again, anybody who knows me knows that that's what I do. Unfortunately, it slows me down, but I'm doing my best. Look at your drawing. Will your walls only be 4 bales high? Looking at your drawing, they will be 4 bales high. They'll be sitting on edge. They'll be sitting on edge. So those are roughly 2 feet high. So when you stack 4 of them up, you get 8 feet. I'm expecting, I think, to get 2 by 8 for the windows. Okay, and full width for the doors. When you stack those bales, you get 8 feet. I am expecting to get, and like I said, I'll do a test before I actually chop the bucks to the height that I want. But I'm expecting to get probably about 1 inch of compression per bale. So those 4 bales, when I squeeze them down with a box beam on top of them, I expect to squeeze down about 4 inches, and I think that's about what Bill got too. So that would be 7 feet 8 for the wall, at least on the low side. And then of course you got the box beam on top of that, so you get a little bit more. So it'll still be in the neighborhood of kind of 8 feet tall ceilings on the low side, and then on the high side, of course, about 2 feet higher, because we're going to go for about a 1 in 12 pitch. So yes, the bales will be the walls will be 4 bales high, but you might not realize, the way you traditionally see a bale maybe laying flat, it's the shortest side is its height. We're actually going to stand them on end so that its shortest side is actually its width. So we're going to get 2 feet of height out of each bale. To answer, hopefully that answers Brian's question. I don't know if he thought maybe the wall was going to be really short, but it should be about 8 feet tall. Close,
I have
at least.
a question.
Yeah.
When we finish with the building the house, are we still going to do lives every week?
Probably not, but I mean, unless we got something, we'll do lives as long as we have something to talk about. But for right now, obviously, we're focusing on the house. So, and even during these discussions, we talk about other things. But we'll do lives for as long as people want to listen to us, and that's kind of what I've said on here. Oh, you think they'll be stable? Bill's laughing.
Wait,
see, the problem is
mean?
Bill's been through all this before, so I know I'm sure he's laughing at us.
What is he saying? What will be stable? What's they?
The box beams. The box beams. I'm sorry, the bucks, the window bucks.
Because he knows you're gonna overbuild them.
Well, no, I don't know. He probably just what he knows is, we all make mistakes, and mistakes are gonna happen, and whatever I'm anticipating, might not happen. So that's always true.
I want him to cut and paste the wood that we have together and make the butts. So
no, the walls. Oh, I know what. Oh, okay, so people have been giving Bill a hard time about standing his bales on end. I forgot about that. Right. So yeah.
And that's what you're gonna do.
Yes. Well, so in Arizona, it's fairly common. Even Bill and Athena, who have built maybe more bale work in Arizona than anybody. I don't know, but it's very common, especially in Arizona, to take those bales and put them on their side, and you get about 14, 15 inches of width in the wall, of depth in the wall. But most people, when they think of straw bale, maybe they think of cold or what, but you would think of putting the bales kind of flat, and for stability, you think of those bales being flat. But we are going to stand the bales on end. But Bill and Athena have done tons of building that way. Bill Levitt has done a few of his own that way. So he knows that it's fine. But I guess he's been getting a hard time on YouTube about standing them on end. People saying that's not going to be stable enough. Those people probably have never built this stuff. So, anyway, yes, I forgot about that, Bill. Good point. Everyone's an expert. But also, I know what Bill knows in the back of his mind is that a lot of things we do won't turn out the way I expect them to, because he's done it. So
that's right.
So
I totally expect that. Because
I try to expect it. I don't like it, but I try to be ready for it. But
things never go as fast as you want it.
So that's, since we talked to you last, like I said, progress on the truss discussion, but what it's doing is leading me away from trusses. That's good and bad, I guess. I don't know. It was going to be nice to sort of turn something over to somebody else, but at the same time, it was scary to turn something over to somebody else. There's a lot of money involved there. There's a lot of loss of control, and there's a lot of questions that come into play about timing and things. So it looks like I can save a lot of money doing it myself. I do have to put some posts in the house. We've talked about that before. I think Pam and I have sort of become comfortable with the possibility of putting posts in the house. It looks like I can get away with 2 posts. And one of them, because again, this was a reason I wanted to make this video of the SketchUp layout. I'm pretty sure that I can kind of hide one of those posts inside of a wall that we're going to build interior for our bedroom, so that you basically won't even know it's there. And the other post, I think we can kind of put furniture around in a way that makes it really not very intrusive to the room. So we kind of warmed up to that idea a little while back to the possibility of putting post in the room. And then we kind of went away from it again. And I guess if I had, all other things being equal, I wouldn't want to post in the room. But
I'm going to make a tree out of it.
I think I can live with it. And yeah, maybe we can make it cool, so.
We're going to put lights all over it.
You can make it functional. You can make it aesthetic. So I'm almost sort of looking forward to that now. So
yeah, it'll be cool.
Anyway, so that I think we've sort of, let's say, solved our truss issue, in that I think we're going to do our own rafters. And I think I'm comfortable with that. Like I said, I've done it a couple of times. It'll be a little different on the house, but I think I'm pretty comfortable with that process. And then the roofing process on top of it, of course. So that's good news, I think. But then the window and door bucking thing kind of caught me off guard. I thought, when I hadn't thought out every single little detail, I thought I had that in my head. I thought it wasn't a big deal. And then I started to get into some of the details and went, when it comes time to buy wood and put it on the ground, and it's like, well, what do I do? What do I do here? So that kind of threw me a little bit. So I lost a little bit of time there.
If you know what size window you're going to get, how do you know what size to make that?
Every window that you're going to buy, there is a general rule, and I think
I'm asking?
I think you're saying how big to make the opening for any given window.
For the door buck, how do you know how to put?
You said window.
How
switching gears.
If you have a window, how do you know what size to make the window buck?
Okay, that's what I said, but then you changed it to door for some reason. Okay.
Either one.
I think what Pam's asking is, how do you know what the rough opening is for any window? How big you make the opening?
Yes.
And I think Bill will probably know off the top of his head. I think it's roughly 1/4 to 1/2 inch extra, bigger than any window. But most windows, when you're literally buying the window, whether it be online or in a store or whatever, most windows will actually tell you this is the size of the window, and this is the size of the rough opening you need for this window.
Okay,
that is the answer to your question. It's usually the window says it basically, but I think, as Bill just confirmed, it is about 1/2 inch bigger in each direction.
I was
the idea is you want a little bit of play.
Not know what you were doing, but you did.
So luckily, like I said, I did put windows in the shed, but I put them into a traditionally framed wall. So anyway.
Still, it was, you did a good
Alan
job
says I had 1/2 inch. So yeah. So the windows I did on the shed, I think, turned out really well. But again, traditionally framed wall. So a little different.
It'll be all right.
So anyway, that's where we're at. We're a ways in. I think I've covered everything I want to cover build-wise. So if you want to bring up anything else, or if anybody wants to ask a question, or if you want to tell a story, feel free. I think I've gotten out all my build-related information.
I know what I wanted to say.
Yeah, Bill's right. Yeah.
Brian, I wanted Brian to try on my bra today. He wouldn't do it. I wanted him to see what it feels like to wear a bra, because I always wear sports bras.
This turned quickly.
Hey, that's what came into my head.
Mom says you said you're going with standard size windows. Yes, like I said, I was really excited to put this video out because it was going to show you the window layout and everything, and we're really happy with it. It looks awesome. I think the windows are going to be cool. There's a good amount of windows. We're going to have some good views.
It's
I think we put enough windows
exciting
on that south side to get some passive solar, gain. And yes, I picked basically, I had a handful of. I think in the kitchen area, I had windows that were maybe 4 feet wide, 2 feet tall. In the living room, I had a couple of 5 foot wide by 4 foot tall windows, kind of some big windows, right? I even think I had a 6 foot wide window, one 6 foot wide window that points at our best view. Obviously, double doors on the back that are mostly glass. So that's a good amount of light and heat. So yeah, I did try to keep everything pretty standard. And while I was doing them, I was kind of looking them up on like a Home Depot or Lowe's, even if that's not where I actually buy them. These are fairly common window sizes, I believe.
Building the window.
I can get them from Home Depot or a window.
Depot.
Was it Window Depot in Tucson? Yeah, that place was cool. Did you say you were building the window door bucks or buying? I will be building the window and door bucks. So I have to, as I've said many times, I have to know the sizes of the windows I'm going to put in them and the rough opening, obviously. So
and to know like what position you want
and where they need to sit on the wall itself. So I had to do this drawing.
like how where
and
the
this drawing came
countertop
out
is gonna
great.
come.
And like I said, I was this close to kind of finishing the video, and I realized that there was kind of a big hole in my thought process, and it was the how the bale work would be, or the insulation above and below the windows. So so I don't know where this I know where this story came from, but it was a long story that led up to the broad discussion.
It was a show we were watching, and
so
I said I wear sports bras all the time because real bras or regular bras are uncomfortable.
And she basically said, yeah,
and I want you to
know what it feels like to wear a bra.
He wouldn't do it.
So I wouldn't do it. So Paul says, not familiar with straw bale building. Is it for cost savings or insulation or both?
Both.
It's for a couple things. So it's a green building technique if you care about that, right? Hopefully kind of low carbon impact, right? You're taking something that's sort of a throwaway material. I don't know that I'd call straw throwaway as much as maybe tires or something.
Cheaper than wood.
It can be cheap. Any of these green building techniques, I don't know if everybody, Jim's doing earth bag. There are people out there that are going to do things with tires. Bill and I are doing straw bale. These green building techniques, or these earthen building techniques, if you hired somebody to do them, I don't know that this gets publicized all that often, but they're actually not that cheap. If you hire labor to do these things, you're going to pay probably as much, if not more, than a standard built house. Now you're going to get some benefit on the backside, hopefully, of cheaper bills and things like that. But if you pay somebody to build this house, it's not going to be any cheaper. It might be more. Did you see
what Alan said?
I did not yet.
Quit talking.
Okay. Well, I'm answering a question. Do you not want me to answer questions?
No, I don't.
But with these earthen building techniques, or really, I guess, with any technique, if you're willing to do a lot of that labor yourself, that's where the savings really comes in. So yes, we are hopefully going to experience a substantial cost savings.
But you have to.
But it's because we're doing all the labor.
Capable of doing that labor.
And generally speaking, a lay person would have better luck at doing a sort of a more earthen type build that are a little more forgiving than a maybe standard framing where you'd want somebody who knows construction and things. So at least I think that's the logic of going into earthen building for some people, is it's a little more suited to a self builder. But yeah, you don't really see the cost savings until you do a bunch of that labor yourself. So yes, it is about cost savings for us, but I mean, that would be true no matter what we were building, because we'd be hopefully building it ourselves. I just got to dry mouth. Also, straw bale. One of the reasons we chose straw bale is it is a very great insulator, but so are earth bags and so are tires. So it's all of those things, Paul, yes. But it's also that we could do it ourselves. It's a little more eco-friendly. We do like that. It doesn't drive every decision we make, but it's nice.
I can't wear high heels.
So
I don't wear high heels.
So Alan said your interview with the water tank guy helped me a lot. I learned quite a bit. Good. Glad to hear that. Hopefully that was helpful to a lot of people. He's a pretty knowledgeable guy.
Yeah.
He's pretty easy to talk to. He's pretty easy to work with. Again, I will say not everybody here is in our area, but if you're in our area and you have any interest in that stuff, I totally recommend Rick. He's really good to work with. I think his prices are great. I think he's good at what he does.
Yeah.
Mom says try on high heels. High heels look like torture. So yeah.
I can't even walk in them. I've tried.
Pam, I've seen Pam in high heels maybe like 5 times in our entire relationship together.
5?
I mean, it's if that, right? Yeah, she does not wear high heels.
Once I bought some, and I never wore. I think I wore them around the house once, and I couldn't even walk in them, and so I gave them to Taylor because my daughter.
So Rob asked, "Do you know if the water guy covers our area in Bowie?" I do not, and I have to admit, I've said this before, I'm not great at Arizona geography.
Did you look up Bowie?
I don't think I did. Where is Bowie, Rob?
Is it by Flagstaff?
But I mean, I'd give him a call if I were you. I mean, his information's in some of my videos, and you can look him up online. And
he said it's about an hour from St. David, but then it wouldn't be by Flagstaff.
No, if it's an hour from us, then I don't see why he wouldn't. He's about maybe almost an hour from us, I suppose. He's in
Okay.
Hereford, so he is probably about
Wilcox.
go east past Wilcox.
Oh, I don't know where that is either.
Well,
I'm just gonna look.
so it might
up
be more like maybe
on the
2 hours for him.
Google Maps.
I'm gonna guess yes, but I don't know. I think he would probably serve that area. I don't know for sure, but I would guess. So, and we were very happy with him. I don't know if everybody's had the same. I know that Dawn, for example, has had a good experience with him as
where's
well.
Dawn? Where are you, Dawn?
Bill says, sounds exciting, and you seem to be at a crossroads and some major decisions need to be made. Looking forward to the next update. You are accurate, Bill. I really, I know that I need to move. I've needed to move for a long time. But even though it seems like, and yeah, I've kind of stalled out after the sill plate. The good news for the way I work, I think I've said this before.
I got it.
If there is good news for the way I work, is even though I spin my wheels a long time, when I do pull the trigger, I'll probably be pretty quick about putting the stuff actually together. And it's because I've thought about some. I'm not saying that's the right way to do it, and sometimes I hate that I do it that way. But the good side of that is that once I pull the trigger, it usually goes pretty quick, and it usually goes fairly well because I've put a lot of thought into it. So that's one upside of the way I work.
It's like you're going to El Paso. I looked it up.
Well, if it's an hour from us, like I said, then he would be an hour up to us and an hour over to that. So he might be 2 hours from him. But I would still think he might support that area. It's an hour from Benton to Bowie. So it might be more like a 2 hour trip for him. But I don't think that'd be too far for Rick. Anyway, yeah, Bill, you're totally correct. We need to make a lot of progress really soon. But I've put a lot of thought into the next several steps. And I'm this close to being really comfortable with a lot of them. I know I say that all the time, but like I said, once I pull the trigger, I'm hoping to make a lot of stuff happen pretty fast. That could be naive, but that has been my experience, actually, with even the other projects I've done. I admit that I am slow to pull the trigger, but once I pull the trigger, things usually do go pretty quickly and pretty well. So I'm looking forward to continues.
Seeing the progress, too.
We all are. Pam is more than any of you can imagine.
Yes.
Not depending on outside. I love the idea that the roof is more under my control.
Because something would go wrong.
I love that it's something I've done before.
So what's the
there it is. What's the new movement date?
I want to say 6 months from now.
Oh, it'll be a year. To finish everything. There's going to be so much more. All of this stuff that I'm racking my brain about right now.
I'm going to be in there in 6 months.
All this stuff I'm racking my brain, as Bill well knows, all this stuff I'm racking my brain about right now is really just to get a shell. Then there's still plumbing, electrical, plaster, all these things. So I think it's going to be a year. I don't want to make Pam sad, but that's the reality.
I'm all right. At least the wheels are in motion. That's all.
I think the most important thing to Pam gets frustrated when things stop.
I think
but for me, it's always moving forward, even if it's just moving forward in my head. But when Pam can't see the progress outside, that bothers her. And I get that, but she also she knows that it's always progressing in my head. It's just that I take a long time to get comfortable.
When I see it progressing more out there, then when I see the shell happening. When I see the shell happening.
She was super excited about the sill plate. So was I. It was awesome to see that sill plate.
For about a week.
Yeah, but then that faded quickly.
However long you keep the progress.
Walls and top plate are your next steps. Yeah, so that was the other thing that the video, and like I said, I'm still going to make this video, but I need to modify the bucks. It will show you the layout of the house, kind of the interior and the framing. I covered kind of the order of the steps coming up. It'll be
thank you, Omega Royal.
Window and door bucks, then bales, then box beam, then rafters. So all of those things, if I feel comfortable going into each of those projects, projects can actually all go fairly quickly.
Yes, it's window and door bucks next.
Correct. Yep.
I know.
Everything always takes longer and costs more. Yeah, we knew that. We knew that.
3 years.
And again, if it weren't for the monsoon, none of this would be that big of a deal, right? We'd just be, it'll take another week. It'll take another 2 weeks. But when you've got the monsoon looming and you're building with bales, that is a downside of bales, right? So I'm trying not to put the brakes on this whole thing. I'm trying to keep pushing forward. And what I'm going to do is, no matter, no one can predict exactly how the rain's going to come, when it's going to come, how much of it there's going to be. Maybe I'll get lucky, maybe I won't. I have to prepare for that. So my fallback position, once I start to build, I don't want to stop. So I'm going to keep pushing forward, even though it could be risky. My safety net is, even though this could be a hassle, I'm going to have some tarp material. I'm going to get some of kind of the billboard tarps, and I'm going to be prepared. The second I put a bale out, I'm going to be ready to cover whatever I put out there.
Can I answer, Brian?
Go ahead.
He asked, how do you cut the bales to be smaller? So you don't actually cut them. I guess if you're trimming them, you can use like a weed whacker or something like that.
Well, you can clean up bales, but you can't change the strings, right? So with it, by just cutting. So
you have to like poke this little needle thing in there, and you tie a string around it, and you basically like tie it off, and then what happens after that?
The key is to think of the bales.
You pull it apart. It becomes two.
What is a bale to begin with, right? It's a bale. It's wrapped with these strings, right, and tied with these strings. These happen to be 3-string bales, so that's what makes the bale stay together, right? So basically, what you do when you want to create different size bales is you introduce a new set of strings, and the way you do that generally is by poking somewhere in the middle, and you introduce those strings and you tie them around the outsides from that point where you decided, and basically you pull it apart into 2 new bales that you've pre-tied. Yeah, that's how you cut a bale. You don't just cut it.
You tie it in different areas, like at the top and at the bottom, and then it kind of segments.
We'll cover that when we go through it. Bill's covered it before. Yeah. Most people would do it with baling twine, which is the way they come. Bill has done it, and I think we're going to do the same with the strapping material that he used to kind of do his compression as well. So we'll be actually not tying knots to retie those bales, but we'll be using kind of strapping material and a clip system and a ratcheting tool to kind of tie those bales.
That would be easier, because
but yeah, you really don't cut bales, you retie them, let's say.
Yeah. All right, you ready to wrap it up?
Yeah, we've gone about an hour. Storm is coming.
Uh-oh.
Sorry, Alan.
Good night, Alan. We have the generator going right now.
Yeah,
it's getting hot now.
We've reached that point where we need a little assistance. It's hot enough. Thanks to everybody for coming. Thanks for listening to me ramble. Hopefully this stuff is either interesting or entertaining, even if it's hearing about some of our misery. But things are going all right. We'll get it figured out. I appreciate everybody listening. I appreciate everybody giving suggestions. Even if I don't take them, I do appreciate them. So thanks everybody.
Teresa,
over at Building Roots did a short little video on how to tie a bale. It's a great video and great tutorial. Excellent. So yeah, thanks everybody for listening. And I know when I get onto these things, I ramble a little bit, but hopefully it's informational, and hopefully we're a little entertaining, sometimes more than others. But I appreciate everybody listening and stopping by. So thanks so much. Like I said, I was this close to that next video. It's still probably going to be the same video that comes next, but I've got to modify it. So hopefully real soon I'll have a video where you can see the whole house on paper.
You shouldn't have to modify that much. Just that one section.
I'm tempted actually just to say in the video that I have still an issue to work out, and just leave it kind of the way it is, and tell you that I'll revisit those bucks.
Thank you, guys.
But anyway, thanks Tom. Thanks everybody. We really appreciate it. New video coming real soon. Thanks. We'll talk to everybody later.
Yep.
Night, y'all.
Bye, y'all.
Have a good one.